Welcome to your deep dive. Today we're diving into something kind of different, I think. We're looking at failure and learning from failure through through the lens of a children's chocolate cafe.
A chocolate cafe run entirely by kids.
Yeah, I know, right? Sounds pretty cool, but stick with me, okay? There's actually some really interesting stuff here.
Yeah, it's a really cool case study. What we have here is like a first-hand account from the person who set this whole thing up.
Someone who clearly knows a thing or two about kids A&D, about learning.
Yeah, for sure. And like especially about how to give children a sense of ownership and how to make learning really hands-on.
Which I love. It's so much more engaging than just, reading about something in a textbook, right?
Totally.
So they have this program, right? And they divide the kids up into all these different roles.
Exactly.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, what kind of roles are we talking about here?
So basically, they want the children to really contribute to the whole experience, like really be a part of it.
Yeah.
So they're involved in like everything
Yeah.
from like designing the menus to actually doing the cooking to serving the food, even decorating the cafe. It's amazing.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. And they're getting real world experience, too. I mean, talk about accelerated learning.
Right. It's not just theory. It's the real deal. It's like throwing them right into the thick of it and letting them figure it out.
I bet the kids love it.
Oh, they do. The source even mentioned that becoming a waiter is like a really big deal for them. Like they dream of being a waiter.
Oh, that's adorable. So walk me through this. Like, what happens? They have the cafe and...
Okay, so imagine this, right? The younger kids, they're the ones who get to design the menus.
Okay.
But the cool thing is, they don't have to come up with everything from scratch. They get to choose from pictures of like pre-selected items, things they can actually make.
Smart, smart. So it's still manageable, even for the little ones.
Exactly. But they can still like put their own spin on it, like
Yeah.
they'll use all these different colors and stickers to make the menus their own.
I love that.
And then you've got the older kids. They're the ones setting the tables, making everything look all fancy with handcrafted decorations and like colorful vases. It's adorable.
Oh, it sounds so cute.
It really is. And then, of course, you've got the chefs with their little chef hats on.
Oh, stop. That's too much.
They take their job so seriously, like meticulously preparing each order.
I can only imagine the focus, right? Those tiny little chefs. But okay, so they've got this whole system, but with 70 kids to serve, I mean, there've got to be some hiccups along the way, right? Mistakes happen even to the best of us.
Oh, totally. And that's actually something they address head on in this program. It's like part of the plan.
Oh, really? How so?
So before the cafe even opens, the facilitator does this really smart thing. They have a pep talk.
A pep talk.
Yeah, with both the kids and the staff. And they basically tell everyone straight up, listen, mistakes are going to happen. Like it's a given, right? It's part of the process.
Which is so true. No one's perfect, especially not when you're first learning something new.
Exactly. And that's what's so great about this approach. They're not trying to create these unrealistic expectations of perfection. It's all about fostering a growth mindset.
Right. It's about learning and growing from those mistakes, not being afraid to make them in the first place.
Exactly.
Which I think is such a departure from like the traditional way mistakes are often viewed, especially in like educational settings. Like you mess up and it's like the end of the world.
Oh, tell me about it. I remember freaking out over every little mistake in school. Like it was the worst thing ever.
Right. But here they're basically saying mistakes, bring them on.
Right. Because they see mistakes as like opportunities. Like it's not about the mistake itself. It's about what you learn from it.
So it's not just about saying, oh, it's okay to make mistakes. It's about actually creating an environment where those mistakes are seen as like data points,
Yeah.
as a part of the learning process.
Yeah, exactly. They're not serving up shame with that chocolate. They're serving up a big slice of resilience, a side of growth mindset. And what's even cooler is that it doesn't stop there. They don't just like make the chocolate, serve it, and then that's it.
Oh, there's more. What happens next?
Okay, so after the cafe closes up shop, they have this thing called a post-cafe debrief.
A debrief. Sounds kind of formal for a bunch of kids.
I know, right? But it's actually really cool. It's basically a group discussion where everyone gets to like reflect on what happened, like what went well, what didn't go so well, and how they can do things differently next time.
Ah, so it's like a built-in feedback loop.
Exactly. And this is where those aha moments you love so much come in, turning an experience into a real learning opportunity.
It's like they're giving them the tools and the space to actually analyze their own performance.
Exactly.
That's really interesting. It reminds me of something I read about the creator of this program. Apparently, they had their own experience with like what they considered to be a pretty big setback.
You mean that story about their first teaching experience? Where they froze up trying to read aloud?
Yes, that one. Can you imagine standing up there in front of everyone and just like completely blanking?
Oh, I would have died.
Right. It's like everyone's worst nightmare. But they actually managed to use that experience as a learning opportunity.
Totally. It could have been this big, awful thing, but instead of letting it define them, they turned it into fuel for growth. And
Yeah.
honestly, I think that's one of the things that makes this whole account so relatable.
It makes you realize that everyone, even people who seem like experts, have moments of self-doubt. Everyone struggles sometimes.
Totally.
And it's not about avoiding those struggles. It's about how we choose to view them.
Yeah, it's about how we respond.
And in this case, they turned what could have been a truly mortifying experience into a powerful lesson.
Absolutely. And it's a perfect example of how reframing failure as a learning opportunity can be so incredibly powerful.
It really makes you think differently about those moments we tend to label as failures, doesn't it? Like maybe they're not failures at all, but opportunities in disguise.
Exactly. And that's something that really resonated with me in this whole chocolate cafe thing. It's not just about like teaching kids how to make chocolate. It's about giving them these tools, these skills that they can use in any area of their lives.
It's like they're being set up for success, not just in the cafe, but in life, right?
Exactly. They're learning leadership skills,
Yeah.
problem solving, resilience. I mean, these are things that are valuable no matter what you end up doing.
Absolutely. And it all comes back to that idea of creating the right environment, wouldn't you say? Because it's one thing to like tell someone, don't be afraid to make mistakes, but it's another thing entirely to actually create a space where those mistakes are not just tolerated, but celebrated.
100%. And this cafe, it's like the perfect example of that. It's a space that's specifically designed to encourage experimentation, to make it okay to take risks because they've removed the fear of failure.
And that's so important, right? Because when we're constantly worried about messing up, we hold ourselves back.
All the time. We play it safe, we don't take any chances, and then we end up wondering why we're not making any progress.
It's like that quote, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Exactly. And I think that's what this program does so brilliantly. It creates this environment where kids feel safe to take those shots, even if they miss a few or a lot along the way.
So, so good. And it made me think of that Kobe Bryant quote about how failure doesn't really exist. Like, it's all a product of our imagination, right?
Oh, I love that quote. And it's so true because in reality, there are no failures, only results. It's just that we're so conditioned to label certain outcomes as failures, and then we let those labels define us.
Which is such a shame because often those so-called failures are actually our greatest learning opportunities.
100%. They're like these little nuggets of wisdom just waiting to be unearthed.
Exactly. But we have to be willing to see them that way, which can be tough.
For sure. It takes a conscious effort to reframe our thinking, to shift our perspective from, I messed up, to, what can I learn from this?
Right. It's about changing the narrative, both for ourselves and for the people around us, which is, I think, what makes this chocolate cafe model so inspiring. They're not just talking the talk, they're walking the walk. They've created this whole system that's designed to support and encourage growth, even, and maybe especially, when things don't go according to plan.
Exactly. And what's so cool is that it's not just one thing. It's a combination of elements that all work together to create this really supportive, encouraging environment. Like we've talked about the pre-cafe pep talk and the post-cafe debrief. But even the way they divide up the roles, it all contributes to this culture of learning.
Can you say a bit more about that, the roles?
Sure. So by giving each child a specific job to do, they're fostering this sense of ownership, right? Like, this is my responsibility and I'm accountable for it.
Yeah.
And when you feel that sense of ownership, you're more likely to view mistakes as opportunities for improvement rather than as personal failures.
That makes sense. It's like when you're invested in the outcome, you're more likely to care about doing it well.
Exactly. And you're more likely to be open to feedback, to learning from your mistakes because you want to do better next time.
It's like the difference between like being told to clean your room versus wanting to clean your room because you take pride in your space.
Yes, perfect analogy. It's about intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic motivation.
And when it comes to learning, that intrinsic motivation makes all the difference, doesn't it?
100%.
Yeah.
Because when you're genuinely interested in something, when you're excited about it, you're naturally more engaged, more willing to put in the effort, and more resilient when things get tough. you know?
Totally. And
Yeah.
that's what makes this whole chocolate cafe thing so brilliant. They've managed to tap into that intrinsic motivation, that natural desire to learn and grow, and they've created this environment that nurtures and supports that.
It's pretty amazing. And the source really emphasizes that point. Like, this isn't just about teaching kids how to make chocolate. It's about equipping them with these essential life skills.
Skills that will serve them well no matter what path they choose in life.
Exactly.
It really is remarkable when you think about it, how this like seemingly simple idea of a chocolate cafe can offer such a profound lesson in creating environments that really nurture growth and resilience, you know?
Absolutely. And what I find so fascinating is that the source material doesn't just like advocate for this change in mindset. It actually presents a tangible model for how to do it.
Right. It's not just theory. It's like, here's a blueprint, go forth and create.
Exactly. This cafe becomes a model.
Yeah.
Like it shows us how we can create similar spaces in our own lives, even for adults.
Which makes you wonder, what other kind of unconventional learning environments could we come up with if we just approach things with that same, like, childlike curiosity and acceptance of mistakes, you know?
Oh, totally. I love that. Imagine like a workplace where before every brainstorming session, they have a little pep talk,
Mhm.
reminding everyone that the goal is just to generate ideas, to get those creative juices flowing, not to be perfect.
Yes. Like, judgment-free zone, people. Let those freak flags fly.
Exactly. Or like imagine a community workshop where at the end, instead of just packing up and going home, everyone shares their learning moments from the day.
I love that. Instead of trying to hide their missteps, they're like, hey, this is what I learned from that mistake. What did you guys learn?
Right. It's about shifting that whole culture from one of blame and avoidance to one of curiosity and continuous improvement.
Which ultimately comes down to like decoupling our sense of self-worth from our mistakes, right? Because when we can look at those setbacks as data points, as opportunities for growth, rather than as personal failures, I mean, that's when we really unlock our potential, wouldn't you say?
100%. That's when we can really start to thrive, both personally and professionally.
Because it's not about being perfect, it's about embracing the journey, and those inevitable bumps along the way.
And that's a lesson that's so valuable for everyone, no matter who you are or what you do. This chocolate cafe, it's like this delicious reminder that the most powerful learning often happens outside of our comfort zones.
When we're willing to experiment, take risks, maybe even make a mess or two along the way.
Exactly.
So next time you're facing a challenge, remember that children's chocolate cafe. Mistakes, they're not the enemy. They're just part of the process, a stepping stone on the path to something amazing.
And remember, the key takeaway here is the power of environment. It's not enough to just tell ourselves it's okay to fail. We have to create spaces where we feel safe to actually do it.
To embrace those stumbles and turn them into opportunities for growth. Now I'm curious, what would your ideal learning environment look like? Something to ponder. Until next time, happy diving.